morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning.
Morning.
Good
All
morning.
right. I think everybody is here and in the group now. Um, so it is September 11th, and we've got four of us on the screen today. We got some exciting announcements. We have a guest speaker with us today, and we are trying Zoom today. You guys might see us like shifting a little bit as we kind of figure out the best ways to bring these chats to you guys. So we're going to try out Zoom and see how that goes. So the quality is a little bit better. The camera and the camera's a little better. The hopefully the mics are a little bit better, and it'll just be a little bit clearer. So thank you for joining us on Zoom. We will share the recordings on our Instagram page, Facebook page, and on our YouTube channel too. So we've got a few different ways that you can pop in and listen to the recordings later on. So this morning we are here with Shelby and Nikki and Mardee, and our big exciting news this morning is Peggy, if you don't mind, I'm going to have you turn your camera off. Thank you, thank you. We thought we had that fixed so that like it wouldn't come on, but because sometimes it pops on and you don't even know you're on camera. All right, so we have some huge, big news this morning before we announce our speaker. So you guys met Miss Nikki Johnsrud. She was our guest speaker 2 weeks ago. And Shelby and I have been working on a lot of things, and then Nikki is working on a lot of things with Cope Consulting. And we really seem like we have the same goals, the same mission, the same values, and like we really want to be connecting with women amongst a lot of different topics. And we decided, and we are going to be a trio now. So she is now part of the Real Joy Project on an ongoing basis. And we are so excited to have her here, like over the moon happy to have her with us. And so that is just going to allow us to connect with more women and have between the three of us, we have a lot of different people that we know that we are excited to bring into this group with different topics. And so, Nikki, welcome to our group. Why don't you say hi in case they weren't here a couple weeks ago?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I am super excited. The opportunities for what each of us bring to the table, Shelby, JennyLee, and myself, each of us, our mission is to connect with women. And so, like JennyLee said earlier, that is something that brought us all together. And then I think we all were kind of talking about it. Man, I really like her. I like how she's doing this. I like how this is going. Why don't we join forces? And so, and what better way to do it than with through technology and be able to connect with people across, the U.S. or maybe the world, who knows? So thank you for having me, and I'm excited for the next adventure.
I can't wait. It's going to be awesome. So you will be seeing Nikki pop up a lot more because she is now one of the crew. So we're a little bit of just real quick for those of you that are new to Zoom. If you are watching you on your like if you're on your phone, if you're on a screen that only the speaker's popping up and you want to see all four that are on camera, you can just swipe to the side and you should see a gallery with everybody who's on camera. If you're on your computer, it's usually a little button at the top. I have my computer on the side here so I can see both. There's usually a little button at the top where you can change your view if you can see the gallery, and you'll see all four of us on camera. Otherwise, you might just be seeing the person that is speaking popping up. Also, there is a chat button on the bottom. If you're on your phone, if you just tap your phone, there should be along the bottom a chat pop up, and you can type in there questions or comments. Same thing on your computer. If you just move your mouse at the bottom, there'll be a chat button. You can pop questions in there, and then that'll pop up on the side of your screen. So just a little housekeeping there for those that might be new to Zoom. We will be watching the chat and kind of I'll be responding to questions in there. So Shelby, I'm going to have you introduce Mardee and we'll get going.
Awesome. Well, I am extremely excited to welcome Mardee on to our coffee chats. Mardee and I have been friends since college. We ran track together, and running is really what brought us together. And now motherhood. We're both first-time moms. Mardee is a business owner as well. She owns Clark Consulting. No, counseling.
Counseling.
I'm so
Yep,
sorry.
you're fine.
I practiced that and I said exactly what I was going to say. Um, so she owns Clark Counseling. She's a first-time mom, and she is juggling, entrepreneurship, motherhood, and finding just the real joy in all things in life amongst all of that. So, welcome to the show, Mardee. We're super pumped to have you here, and we'll let you kind of just lead the way.
Awesome. Thank you. I am so excited to be here. I feel like it was probably a couple months ago you'd shared with me that you guys were connecting and starting these. And so being able to kind of like be a part of one of these coffee chats is really, really exciting. I really, obviously, like just as a woman, I really value just connecting with women, but I think that this is such an interesting time in, well, really just like in the world, obviously, but also like just generally, like for me and for a lot of my clients, I feel like we're always just in a stage of transition. And so I feel like trying to juggle that real time has been interesting, kind of alongside the different folks that I work with. I work with anybody 18 and over, so I have women and men, in kind of all stages of their life. And so it's so interesting to see that like no matter what transition people are going through, like the feelings and everything that are coming up are somewhat similar. Just kind of like same thing, different font, as the kids say. And I think that I don't know, I think it's really exciting to be able to be like a part of this because I think like I don't know, we're probably all in slightly different parts of our life and also experiencing the same friction that sometimes that causes, as well as like the same excitement. So I'm just super excited to be here.
Mm.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate you taking some time to join us this morning. Jenny and Nikki, do you have any specific questions for Mardee to kind of get things rolling?
Yeah, I guess I do right off the bat. We actually, when I was on here a couple weeks ago, I was talking about transitions. So I think it's um, very interesting and par for the course, so to speak, that that's what you're talking about. You and Shelby are similar in that you are both entrepreneurs. You're also first-time moms. And so that feeling of, a lot of things on your shoulders. So I guess my question is to you is with your where you're at, but also with the women and the young women, the clients that you have, what are you seeing with them in respect to how they're feeling? Something that Shelby and I have talked about is a lot of people, maybe from Jenny Lee's generation and mine or older, we thought we had to do everything. And the younger generation is starting to learn that you don't have to do all the things. And so we're championing you. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that you don't still have those struggles and those feelings of overwhelm and things like that. So maybe you can speak to how you deal with that, or how maybe some of your clients have felt, or even yourself. And what are some of the things that have been helpful for you and your clients?
Yeah, I think that's such a great point. And like generationally, there's a different kind of grace I think that each like that women are giving themselves generationally, that goes on. But it's so interesting because I think for myself, and then many of my clients, like I said, I feel like I have Gen Zers. I even have like the cusp, like I think Gen Alpha is probably like 18 right now, so I have a couple of those. And then I've got, X, boomers. I've even got a couple of folks that are kind of transitioning into like navigating sort of like the like if we think of like the stages, like the meaning making of like, ooh, what have I done, what have I given back, has it been enough? And I think it's really interesting because I find with all of my clients, men included, but specifically with women, there's this like underlying feeling of like I'm not doing enough, like constantly, like I'm never quite doing enough at work, and I'm never quite doing enough at home, and I'm never quite doing enough in my friendships and my relationships, and kind of this constant sense of like being like a burden. I think is how I would phrase it. Like I'm constantly taking up too much space and I'm constantly too much. And I think, yeah, like I think that's something that all of us feel. I know myself personally, it's something I'm working on with my own therapist, right? Is kind of this need to like, oh, like I get to actually take up space. I'm not too much. I'm not, and that's, I think, a constant conversation I'm having, especially with my women clients. Because it is something that everybody struggles with, and it's just this constant friction.
Mm. I think you shared that thread that goes through, it doesn't matter which age we are. I think it doesn't matter the age, it matters the stage of where we're at with understanding who we are, if that makes sense, like where
Yep.
you're at on the journey of discovering that.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
thank you for sharing that. I think that's really insightful. Hmm.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely. I appreciate that.
no, and you're hitting on exactly things that we've been talking about a lot. And Shelby and I were talking about that before we even started this. Just being in different stages of our lives. Like sometimes we can all judge those different layers. Like, like before you have kids, you're judging the moms that do have kids. And then you get a little older and you forget what it was like having little kids, and you might be judging those moms from a different, and that's one of the things that we're really trying to work on is like, let's not judge each other. Let's help each other because we're all
Mhm.
struggling at different times and it's always hard. But what you were just talking about, like that combination of like, you don't feel enough and you feel too, like you're taking up too much space, but you're not doing enough all at the same time is like something
Mhm.
we're always wrestling with inside. But the validation of like always feeling like when people ask, well, how have you been? Oh, I'm busy. Like that's always our first reaction. And really, I'm trying so hard to stop doing that, and stop pretending, not pretending. I mean, I am busy, but I don't have to validate that I'm busy or hand them my checklist. Here's what I did today. And are you seeing a lot of that? Do you have a lot of clients how do you kind of talk through somebody like that? And what are some of the things that you might suggest for them to help them to work through that?
Yeah, so I talk a lot with my clients. And honestly, again, like I'm very transparent that most of the stuff I'm working on with my clients, again, like it's common things, right? So myself too is like trying to not derive our sense of meaning or a sense of self-worth from productivity. So like we're more than just what we do. And I think that that's something that is really, I think it's very, very challenging for women because there has been, I think, just throughout history, like this sense of like invisible labor, I think is a word I've heard a lot recently, where it's sort of like all these things are getting done. Nobody's necessarily noticing it unless they're not getting done. There's a joke about like this magic table. I don't know if you guys know the joke.
No.
So, I'm not gonna get the joke right because I'm not a great joke teller, but basically, this has something to do with like this guy calls the cops and he comes in and he's like, talking about like something going missing, and he's like, "Well, I thought it was on the magic table," and it's a female cop and a male cop. Yep. I think you know this, Nikki. And the female cop's like, magic table. And he's like, yeah, like I put stuff on this table and it just goes away. It's the craziest thing. It just disappears. And the male cop is like, I have a magic table too. And the female cop is like, no, you're married. Like you have a wife. Like she's the magic table. And so I think it's kind of this like constant need to like, I think so many women want to not be the magic table anymore, but also like simultaneously don't know how to, again, like the constant thing of like, oh, I'm being too much, but I'm also not doing enough. And so it's this constant push and pull of like, your labor doesn't have to be invisible. And sometimes you get to kind of set boundaries on what you're willing to take on just as a human.
Mm. Wow, so many
Yeah.
things in that.
Yeah.
Ooh, Shelby, go ahead. Wow.
I'm just like shaking my head along with this because every single thing that you're saying, Marty, I'm like, oh, yeah, I know about this magic table, even though I knew nothing about the joke. Halfway through, I was like, oh, I know where this is going. Um, that I love that because I always seem to know where everything is, and my husband never knows where it is. Um, do you find yourself, Marty, working with a lot of your female clients who are married? um, Helping them or guiding them through like conversations of, how to ask for help or to delegate some of those things because yes, I feel we do kind of create that invisible extra work for ourselves and put those expectations on ourselves, but in reality there still are a lot of things that need to get done throughout the day, and you and your spouse are a team. So do you find that you're, helping women have conversations, whether it's with their husband or, friends or family members about things that, just asking for help?
Mm.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think something that's interesting is like this phenomenon doesn't, at least in my experience, right? I have a very skewed experience because I am a therapist. So everybody's coming to me because like there are things that aren't going great. So I definitely have a skewed experience. But it's really interesting to me that this like phenomenon of the magic table like transcends like gender specific marriages. So like I have clients who maybe are married to like married to a woman, right? And there's still somebody picking up this dynamic. And I think that that's a really interesting thing because it does tell me that like it's more than gender specific. I think it's very frequently the woman who does experience this, but I have several male clients and then I have several lesbian clients where it's absolutely like it's the same dynamic. And so to answer your question, like, yes, constantly talking about like how do we express ourselves? And it's so challenging because it's so much more than just like, hey, babe, like I need you to do this because then it comes with the whole like I have a client and we were joking the other day like oh hate to make a man a list, like hate to make a list. And so it's this constant push pull of like I don't want to still have to carry the mental load of delegating, but
Mhm.
also I think there's just a natural like you said, Shelby, like I just always know where stuff is. I used to call it mom sorcery, right? When I was a kid, my mom would always know, even now as an adult, like if I can't find something and I call my mom, she'll be like, have you looked here? Sure enough, this shoe I lost 3 months ago is in the back corner of my closet. Like it's a little bit of mom sorcery. I think we're, super women in those cases sometimes, but again, kids or no kids, like that's the expectation. So it's oftentimes more than just like finding the right words to say it, but it's like trusting that it's okay. Um, and also recognizing that like sometimes that is going to rock the boat in like the dynamic of your relationship, whether it's dating, married, heteronormative, homosexual, bisexual marriage, it doesn't matter. Like creating this change is gonna like then it causes some friction within the relationship sometimes because it's new and it's a change in the dynamic. So it is, it's building communication skills and trust and expressing yourself, but then it's also like, okay, how do we ride out like the natural friction that comes up when change is introduced into our relationships in any sense.
Well, and I think that I think you brought up a lot of good things. I mean, I talk about that a lot. Our busyness not being tied to our worthiness, for one. But
Mhm.
number two, I think it's also just where I'm at in my life. I know that I've had that conversation, and sometimes we get the message, right, or the that we're not supposed to talk about all the things we do. Right. And then I think that's what happens to our daughters and our sons is that our daughters look at us and say, hell no. I don't want all of that, right? And so they start checking off things, and then we sometimes can be almost offended as mothers, like, why wouldn't you want to do what I do? Well, but we didn't show them the whole picture. We didn't show them that we were, laying in bed crying our eyes out because we were trying to figure out how we were going to make the cupcakes, get the bridal announcements out and whatever else, right? And we're doing all of this, and but then we're like, oh, we're good, like everything's fine. And then we want to, like, pull up the, whatever it is, and just say, and so for me, I just think about at my stage of life, I did talk with my husband about, what, I just need you to understand all the things that I do. Like the bills, like I've always done the bills. I've always, always made sure things were done on time, that we have money, those types of things. And that's something that's constantly, it's like your computer, the stuff that's running in the background that we just don't talk about. And I think that I love the invisible labor. I had never heard that before. That all the things that it's that time of the month. Actually, I just said to my husband a couple weeks ago, I'm like, you didn't get paid this week. And he's like, what? I'm like, yeah, you didn't get paid. And he's like, well, I wouldn't know. It gets sent to your email. I don't even know how much I get paid. I don't know when I get paid. I'm like, you didn't get paid. And he's like, and I said, and so you need to call your employer and say, why didn't I get paid this week? So then he calls you back and he's like, well, I don't get paid until the first this month. I'm like, that is news to me. I did not know that. Right.
Mhm.
And so I'm like having this conversation with him. and it comes back to, but here's the other thing I want to say about that is that's because I just put my head down for a lot of the years and just did it, like because I thought that was what was expected of me. And then starting to have the conversation, I was like, this is hard. I need you to understand that it's hard. He's like, well, do you want me to take over doing the bills? Yeah, I'm not sure that I'm there, right? Like that's a control issue, I will admit, right? So I'm just saying there's sometimes it's not even saying I want you to take it, but I need you to see it. I need you to see that I do this work. And when you come home and everything just is put back in its place, it just didn't magically appear that way. And regardless if I have a housekeeper or not, that housekeeper fairy that I call her, she's not here every day. That's me, right? So I think that's the other thing is having that conversation doesn't mean that you are always asking for it to be taken. You are asking to be seen, right? And heard that it's hard. Like acknowledge that it's hard. So
Mhm.
that's, what you just talked about. It's sometimes we are asking, I need you to take this off my plate. I need to just not cook one night a week, right? Or whatever that is. And say to your husband or your spouse or your significant other, or maybe you're a single parent and you call your mom or you call your best friend and say, you know what? Could we do a swap? Like one night a week, we make supper together, or you make it one week, I'll make it the next week, and we just drop it off at each other's house, or we get together, whatever it is. But sometimes it's that the acknowledgement that I do have too much, or how could I help? If you're not willing to let me take over the bills, how can I help with something else? Or even just acknowledging that it's a tough job. So I guess that's where what I'm thinking about that, at least in my life, how that translates. But I mean, I'm not saying love. I just think it's powerful when you say invisible labor because I don't think most people, even some women don't understand the amount that another woman is doing because we say we're fine, right? I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. And we're all walking around where we're just one crack away from breaking open, and that's okay too. Yeah, that's okay
And I
too.
want I want to share something in the comments, and thank you for sharing in the comments. Um, on another perspective, and from Peggy, who's retired, and she said, "I'm having the same conversations with my husband. We are in the time of life where we don't dwell on the end, but we need to be aware. If something happens to me, I need to know he will be okay paying bills and not end up hopeless." And so those transitions through life of, I look at when we were young and married and had little kids, we often assumed this was your role and that was your role. I feel like we're in the stage now where there's more appreciation, like, oh, I appreciate what you do. And I've learned, oh my gosh, does appreciation go a long way? The little things. Thank you for taking out the garbage, and Nikki always uses the words, I see you. It's like, I seen you doing that. Thank you for doing that. And now it's reversed where it comes back to me. And it's because they start to follow that same language after a while. And now where she's talking about, where Peggy's talking about in her stage of life, yeah, the transitions through life and the different stages of learning to have those conversations, and they ebb and flow and they grow through that.
I
Definitely.
I love it seems I apologize, Marty. I love that this was the whole idea behind the Real Joy Project when we started this was connecting women at every single stage. Um, I know Jenny and I had a conversation not that long ago, are we reaching enough people? Because initially it was just her and I, and we were talking about just motherhood situations or just hormones like in our 30s or in our late 40s. And we're reaching so many other women with just conversation and talking about this. We have Peggy, who's retirement age, that can relate to Marty and I, in our 30s. And it doesn't have to be the exact topic that you're hoping for, but it's going to reach so many people just by talking about it because I feel like these things aren't discussed. And Jenny, Nikki, and I talked yesterday about, it goes beyond our relationships with our husbands. It's just bringing women together to make that connection. And there are going to be some of those, friction points and pinch points and things, but I'm just thankful to have even you three to visit with today. And I'm glad that we're, making that connection from 30 years old all the way up and beyond. So
Agreed. Agreed. Yeah. I think what we talked about yesterday is that so many times because we didn't talk about it, we had no idea that our mothers or our grandmothers were experiencing some of the same things, or maybe it was much harder in some parts and easier in others, right? And so it opens up the conversation for us to realize, regardless of what age we are, we have so much connectiveness together that there's so many things that we share. But a lot of times we judge, like JennyLee said, we look at somebody and we're like they'd ever need to see a therapist. Like I tell people all the time, I'm like, I saw a therapist for a long time, and now I'm like, maybe I should go back to that, you know? Um, but as I shared with JennyLee and Shelby yesterday, I learned early on in my marriage what made it wasn't that I was avoiding things, I learned, but that starting to have conversations, I always said the best marriages had the wives had the best girlfriends. And what I meant by that is not like going out and partying, you do you, right? But really having those conversations that my husband really didn't want to listen to. And really what it was is that I needed to get it out and talk about, like JennyLee always talks about the poopy diapers. Like, what kind of poopy diapers was it today? For me, it was like, oh my gosh, this is going on with so and so and whatever. And my husband's like glassed over eyeballs, and like, okay, I'm gonna go out to the yard, right? Um, it's that sometimes we just need to talk it out. And that's not to say to still not have those conversations with your husband, but we get that camaraderie from other women because, like, as we've all been talking, if you see us all, we're all like, oh yeah. And if we could see the other ones that are on online, I'm sure they would be doing the same thing, like, oh yeah, I remember that, I've been there, done that. And so we feel that feeling of oneness, that even though we are at different stages, like Shelby just talked about, we have that feeling of we're still tethered to one another and we're more alike than we are different, even though we might be very, very different in so many ways. Like maybe one of your biggest pressure points is, that somebody always puts dishes in the dishwasher or dish in the sink, and when they wake up, they're always magically gone, right? Somebody else might have that same one. So I think, and Mardee, I have to say, kudos to you for being able to be a therapist now, because I think there are so many. I think since COVID, so many of us actually we withdrew, right? We drew into our homes to protect ourselves. But I think what had happened in that is that we almost withdrew too much, and now we have almost that fear of like going back and being social again. And so I'm not saying everybody, but I see that with a lot, like we become hermits. It's much easier to stay at home. And so to go outside or have those connections outside of ourselves seems a little scary. And so this is a way that people can have that, start to tiptoe back into society and feel connected. Do you feel that with some of your clients at all?
Definitely. Yeah. Especially my clients that were like junior high, high school age when the pandemic hit. That was such a formative time that it's been interesting, even like early college, right? I mean, it's been 5 years, I can't believe, since everything closed down. Oh, almost six, right? Since everything closed down. And there's still this awkwardness, this sense of like uncertainty of what that looks like. I talk so often with so many of my clients about making friends, and especially about making friends like as an adult. I feel like 90% of my friends are from college, they're from grad school, they're from like internships, things like that. And I spend a lot of time with, again, all ages of my clients, men and women, but particularly women, talking about like what does it mean to like be connected with people that you trust. How do you trust people? Do you trust people? And one of the things that kind of came to mind as you were talking, Nikki, is that like I- it's okay that like your husband isn't your everything, or your wife isn't your everything, or your best friend isn't your everything. We talk a lot about like friendships having different buckets, right? So like I might have a friend that I like to go to dinner with, and maybe she has a friend that she likes to go to the club with, right? Like, and that's great. Like we need to have those different buckets. And so to answer your question, like, yeah, spending time like talking about like how do we cultivate these buckets? How do we breathe life into the areas of need? There's a couple great apps out there. There's like I think it's called Meetup. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Peanut. Some of these, and it's really great. I like it because you know that everybody that's on Peanut, everybody that is Peanut is like, for those of you who aren't familiar, I call it my mom Tinder. Like I just moved, as you can tell, my office is only half set up. And it's based, you literally like swipe left or right on people, but it's like for mom friends, which I think you know about it, Shelby.
Wow.
And Meetup is like there's different events, but what I think is really unique is like people are recognizing exactly the need that you talked about, and so they're cultivating these apps or these meetups and things like that, so that you know if you go there, literally everybody there is just trying to make friends, so it takes the awkwardness out of like, oh, do they want to be talked to, like, yeah, or we wouldn't be on this app, we wouldn't be at this meetup.
Yeah.
Well, that is something so different than when we were, yeah. I was like, I didn't even know those existed for like friendships. That's
Yeah.
very cool.
Yeah, it's really unique.
It's funny you bring that up. So moving to Houston, I mean, I knew no one. Starting from scratch with my friend groups and the closest relatives we had, were either my in-laws a few hours away, or Justin had a couple of relatives that live 3, 4 miles north of us. But they're doing their own thing. They're super busy, and you don't want to just come down here and assume like, oh, you're related to Justin, so we have to be friends and you have to spend all your time with me. But I used the app called Bumble BFF.
Hmm.
It's just like Tinder as well. And it was mainly full of women trying to make friends. And I actually met one of my really good friends through the app. And I remember the first time that I was like really messaging Brianna on there. My husband was like, should I be worried? Like, what are you doing on there? And just the connection that her and I were able to have through an app was kind of crazy to me because I wouldn't have found her. There's no way. I live in the suburbs outside of Houston. She's 18 miles away from me. And that's for those who live like in North Dakota, you could easily run into somebody who's 18 miles away from you at the local grocery store because like that's where they shop. But the chances of her and I ever meeting would have been probably 1 in 1 billion without that app. And we just look back on it now. It's funny. We've been friends for 2.5 years, and just having that connection and that one friend down here was huge for me to talk through things and vent. And we were at different stages of our lives together at that time too. We were going out and grabbing dinner and maybe having drinks or going to her house for pool parties and things. And then when I became a mom, our dynamic changed a little bit. But now she's expecting in January. So it's just really cool to kind of have that connection through something so simple like a dating app where you think it's kind of funny. But just bringing women together in a way like that. And then now we get to be on this journey of motherhood together too.
I love that you brought up the different buckets of friendships, and that is something that I think as we age we really realize like how important that is, because different people will fulfill different roles in our lives, and sometimes people come in and it's not a good role, but we also I can look back now and I'm like, oh yeah, but they projected me into a better place. Like it might not have been a good situation at the time, but they moved you into that. And some of my best friends, as like I'm 47, to think about that for a second right now, but some of my best friends I might see once or twice a year, or even talk to like once or twice a year. But man, we can get on the phone and it's like you didn't miss anything in between. And those relationships are amazing. Where when we're young, I think we judge our friendship on like how much time we spend together and how many times they called us, and we have to realize everybody's busy, and respect each other's time is so important. What are your recommendations for your clients who are like, yeah, I'm not getting on an app to find friends. Like that's out of my league. Like how do you recommend for women there to connect?
Yeah. Well, first off, we talk about the shame of not knowing how to make friends. That's always where it starts. Because I don't know a single person who feels like social skills come naturally to them. I think everybody feels like they're awkward. Everybody feels like they don't fit in. And so oftentimes like we got to start there and like sort of dismantle like yeah no like nobody knows how to make friends. Everybody feels awkward. This sucks. It never got easier outside of the sandbox. It's weird. It's weirder now because you don't see people. So we always start there. And then oftentimes we start with just like okay, well who interests you? Like look around like oftentimes we'll like do a mental scan of like your workplace or your gym or the places that you frequent of whatever wherever that is, the coffee shop that you go to, and like okay, how do we strike up a conversation? Because again, we all know, right? All of us are nodding. We all know how awkward it is to make friends, which means like there's a good chance that 99.9% of the world also feels this way. And so kind of exploring like what does that look like? Like how do you pick out who is interesting to you? How do you accept that like one of the things we talk about a lot is like sometimes we have to move friends to different buckets. Like if something happens, maybe they were in a very close bucket to us and something happens and we need to kind of like move them a little further away, or move somebody closer. That's always more comfortable. But just normalizing that like it's okay that it's weird because it's gonna be weird. Like it's just you're two people with your whole lives trying to mush them together. And it's usually where we start, and then we just keep kind of talking about the weirdness of it all because it is weird. It's weird to make friends. It's such a weird, like to be human is such a weird experience, especially to be a woman at each stage of life. It's such a uniquely weird, messy, cool, beautiful experience, that oftentimes we kind of like just keep dismantling the weirdness of it all, and that like weird isn't bad.
I love that she ended on weird is not bad. I mean, I'm not joking. I think that what you just talked about, I shared with JennyLee. I'm not going to go into it too much because I know we're getting towards the end of our time, but I recently had to go into a situation and I immediately felt I was, pitting out through my shirt. Went into a place that I knew some people, but instantly regretted it. If I could have walked right back to the front door and went back out, I would have. I like had tunnel vision. It was every part of my body was screaming, abort, abort, leave the premises. Um, but it was one of those things that it's kind of like survival, right? Like scanning the room. Is there anyone that you know? Okay, if you don't, go to the back of the room, right? So nobody's looking at you. See if there's an empty table. If there is an empty seat at a table, pull up a chair and say, excuse me. And then that person turned around. It just so happened for me. Then that person turned around. I'm like, I thought I recognized them. And so I hadn't seen them in many years. It was not a friendship by any means, but it was acquaintance that I had met before. And so that at least let me have like a tether, or like so I think about people when we go into situations, because I would say probably people think I'm pretty outgoing. I can make friends easily. I can talk with people. But as I just shared, there are plenty of times that I don't feel that way. And so for some of because I'm still trying to figure out, how do I meet more people? How do I meet other people? So what are your hobbies? Maybe what are things that just strike your interest? Like going out, and if you want to do yoga, go to a yoga class. Go to a library that's doing a book reading or something like that. What are things that interest you? Just some of those things. And sometimes us women are like, what the hell do I even like? I don't even know. So I will tell you, I've been kind of in that space. So I'm kind of like the runaway bride where she has all the eggs and I'm trying to decide which egg I like. That's where I describe myself. I'm trying to decide what are my hobbies. I don't even know that I have any. So just starting there. So I think sometimes, and immediately it's like tasting ice cream that you maybe are trying for the first time. You take the first bite and you're like, no way. Avocado honey is not for me, right? I love honey and I love avocado, but not together. So it's the same thing for people. But to bring it back to us at the Real Joy Project, I would say that is our mission. Is not only to help people start to decide and figure out who they are, but find connections with other people. And it right now it's not in person, but we hope to sometime have some things like that where we will have some times where maybe a pop-up here or there to have interaction with women, but really for them to start to get out. So you're not necessarily having to leave your house right now, but come online with us and have those discussions and have conversations and be connected with us and us to connect with you. That's a great place to start. Yeah.
It really is. And we're working as a group as possibly having future online events where they're a little more interactive and different things. So stay tuned. We are learning. It's going to take us some time to figure all this out, but we're so glad you guys are here with us, whether you are live today or you're catching the replay. So we try to keep these a little not too long so that way we don't take up too much of your time. Mardee, is there anything you want to add before we wrap up today? I want to say, first of all, I hope we see you again because you're a perfect match in here. So I hope that you come back again and we get you on again some another time. But anything you want to wrap up today?
Yeah, no, thank you for saying that. I was actually just thinking like, oh, this is like such a delightful way to start my day. Thursdays are like my longest day, and this was like such a fun way to start it. So thank you so much for letting me be a part of it. I'm just really excited, anytime I can connect like with other women, I think like all of us, right? Like that's all we want is just like we want, more girls, we want more friends. I really just I think that Peggy said in the chat like weird is good. I think that maybe that's the biggest thing. Like I encourage people to remember that like difficult emotions don't mean that things are bad. Sometimes they just mean that things are good, or new rather. Mean that things are new. There we go. And so yeah, maybe that's, something good for all of us to remember. I know myself, I have to remember that all the time, all the time. New is not bad.
I love it. I love it. Shelby, do you want to wrap us up today?
Yeah, thank you so much, Mardee, for popping on here.
Thank you.
Just like everything else, it's so nice to take our conversations and put them into action. I know it was probably close to a month ago I reached out to you and was like, hey, I have this really cool thing going on, and I just want to reconnect with you again. So it's been great to kind of rekindle our friendship as well. So I appreciate you hopping on here with us. And yeah. Um, does anyone else have anything to wrap up here? I mean, today was
No.
great. I loved it. And I feel like Mardee said, it's just a wonderful way to start the day, having that connection and being able to chat with you ladies.
Yes, yes. I just picture at the end of what I think about is our great grandmothers or great whatever it would be when they were, it sucks that they were having to do laundry, but I just picture them at the old laundry, the washing machine where they were out there doing it together because they would have to do it outside, but it was that gatheredness of them. And so we don't have to do the laundry. I mean, if you want to and you're folding it on your table while you're joining us, that's great, but that sense to be able to gather and connect over those shared experiences and those transitions, whether they're ones that we've had yet or not, but we can be empathetic and we can learn from that person. So then when we get to that transition, we may have some of their wisdom to take with us. So I'm so blessed to be a part of this, and I think that the women that are here are shining, and all of you that joined us from online, you continue to make our day, and hopefully this made yours.
Love it. Alice just said this was wonderful, and I think this is an ongoing conversation, which is so funny because I was going to say, man, this conversation is going to continue because this is fantastic and we could talk for hours. So thank
Yeah.
you all for being here. Thank you for listening. Everybody have a fabulous day.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank
Bye,
you.
guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.